Hello and welcome to the world of Craig. Yes, that's me, I'm Craig, and this is my channel where we get into all things hair and sometimes a little bit of beauty. Now, I asked you over on my Instagram whether you would like to see a video of products I don't care for, things I'm not into. And a lot of you, it would seem, wanted to see this video because so many of you engaged with the poll and said, yes, make the video. So here we are. Pull up a chair, get yourself a snack, because we're going to get into things that I really don't care for. Briefly, before we get into the main part of the video, I just wanted to mention before we get going on things I'm really not into, that this video is not supposed to bash anybody. If any of the things I talk about you really enjoy and you love using, that's completely fine. This is all personal to me and these opinions are my own. I have popped on, it's the last days of summer here in London, it's gorgeous. I've just popped on a rather bright, flowery new shirt just to bring some joy when I'm talking about things that I'm not really feeling. Now, first up, let's talk metal brushes. Yes, this is not actually mine. It is one of my colleagues and does have a few hairs around it. Excuse me. I know that a lot of you, this is controversial yet bold. It is, because I know a lot of you will really be into these sorts of brushes, but I really don't like them. If you like them, as I've already said, that's great, woohoo! And I'm not saying that it's wrong to use them, but I do want to talk about why I don't like them. Number one is an obvious thing. The barrel of a lot of these brushes is metal. I know that the brands that make them, and I'm not talking about a specific brand, I'm talking about metal brushes generally. The first up is that the barrel is metal. And I know that some of them say they're ceramic, but they're all metal underneath and they get very hot. And obviously you're wrapping the hair around the brush and the hair is having contact with that metal barrel, which can be extremely damaging. And if the hair is coloured or is already fragile or is very soft in texture and you're trying to stretch it out, then that metal can really damage the hair over time. If you're a consumer watching this and you have one of these brushes and you have breakage in your longer hair that you blow dry regularly, this could be the reason why. Secondly, it's the bristles. I mean, hopefully you can hear that bit of hairbrush ASMR. These plastic bristles, nylon bristles, really don't do very much as far as getting the hair smooth. These brushes became popular because of the big flicky blow dries, and yes, metal brushes do give you that really bouncy curl because obviously the hair's getting very hot, so it heats it up, it obviously disrupts the bonds within the hair, which is what happens when you blow dry hair, and then it creates that curl. But these bristles just don't really get the hair very smooth. What do I love? Hold on, don't go anywhere. I love boar bristle brushes. Now, this one is Wyers Park. This one is a really old Bumble and Bumble. Sorry, they've both got hairs on them. That's terrible, isn't it? But these are basically my go-to because they have a mixture of natural bristles here and then the longer nylon bristles that grab the hair. This one is again, has the nylon bristles and then the natural bristles that actually smooth the hair out. They don't create it's not so simple to get a curl with these, if you like. You do have to work the hair more, but they do stretch the hair out more. So in my opinion, a blow dry done with these not only causes less damage, but because they're smoothing and stretching the hair out, you actually get a blow dry that lasts longer. I know, there's gonna be people watching this saying that they don't agree with me, and that's completely fine. And like I said, all these opinions are my own. How many times might I say this in this video? But in my opinion, metal brushes are just really not great. And if you do get some brushes that have a mixture of nylon bristles and boar bristles, you will find that the blow dry results, yes, it might take you a bit longer to create that big bouncy blow dry, but it will be smoother. There'll be no damage done to the hair, and ultimately the finish will be better. So please, if you do one thing for yourself before Christmas, get yourself a brush like this. This one's Wyers Park, as I said, and this one I think is an old Bumble and Bumble one, but there are many more. This video is not sponsored. I'm not trying to sell you a brush. I'm just trying to perhaps change the way that you view something that could potentially do damage to your client's hair whilst not getting you the same finish as one of these would. Now, if you're still here, still watching, and I haven't upset you because I said metal brushes are horrid, let's get into my next thing I'm really not keen on. Tiny foils. Do you know, I've just pulled these out of a box that I bought home from the salon, because there are some people that I work with who use these little foils, and I cannot believe how tiny this is. I'd also like to mention before we get into this that these are from Foil Me Foils. I am an ambassador for the brand. They don't pay me to be an ambassador. They do give me free product. Thank you very much, Foil Me Foils. Hello. I've been using Foil Me Foils now for about 7 years. Foil Me Foils, I'll say it again. Foil Me Foils. Let's try saying that 4 times without your teeth in. But they're not paying me any money to make this video. They're just a product that I love. And the reason being is that this is so tiny. It's so tiny. And I'm not particularly bashing any brand of small mini baby foils. It's just that why would you use a foil this wide when you can use a foil this wide and cover a much bigger surface area? There are loads and loads and loads of foiling videos here on my channel, loads. There's a playlist of foiling videos. There's all of these foiling videos here on my channel. And I talk about wider foils a lot, and it's because you can cover a larger surface area quicker. Foil highlighting, in my opinion, it's a system. So it's all about, you take your weave, you place your foil, you paint the product onto the foil, you fold the foil up, and then you repeat the process. Whether you're doing something that's super dimensional or you're doing a traditional kind of set of foils where you're putting in foil after foil after foil. Why would you use like a tiny baby foil where you've got to put loads and loads and loads and loads in? Yes, these are great for a hairline. Yes, these are great for, little tiny baby, whether you call them baby lights or just micro lights. I just call them fine highlights, but you call them whatever you want to call them. But for me, it's a no-brainer. A bigger foil, less application time. Also, I will just add as well that I've never really cared for the texture of these foils because they're quite thick. I don't know if that's coming across on camera, I hope so. They're quite thick, so they're not really very malleable. Foil Me Foils is much finer, it's a much finer grade of foil, so it's much more malleable and it's much easier to work with. So, if I'm honest, the thought of using these to foil with makes me shudder. It really does. I'm like, bleh. Because time is money in salon, and as much as I love foiling, I don't want to be there with all these tiny little packets when I can be using these and get the job done quicker and be more efficient, save time, and then be able to fit other clients in or be able to go home earlier, etc., etc. So tiny foils, no. Wider foils, yes. Just before we move on, very, very briefly, I completely forgot to mention, if you do start using a wider foil, and there are lots of brands of wider foil as well, I'm not necessarily specifically saying you should use Foil Me Foils, but if you are using a wider foil and you do try it, it does take a little bit of getting used to if you've been using the tiny micro baby foils. So give yourself some time, maybe watch some of the videos on my channel here and just give yourself time to get used to it. Foil Me, just worth mentioning that they do also produce these massive extra wide foils, and I love these as well for dimensional placement, for dimensional highlighting. I like them for if I'm doing any balayage and I need to get a bit of extra lift, I lay them underneath the hair once I've balayaged, does all the miming. So, and these are even wider, obviously, and bigger. And these took me a while to get used to, as did these. But now I couldn't be without wider foils. Yes. Ooh, jump scare. Just a moment to take in the gorgeousness that is Lydia. Yes, this is Lydia. Say hello to the viewers, Lydia. Have you seen my new haircutting tutorial here on my channel? My latest haircutting tutorial? I cut Lydia's hair completely using a razor. No scissors, just a razor, and it's a really simple, easy step-by-step to follow. Shameless plug with lots of top tips on how to use a razor if you've never used one before, and how to create this gorgeous textured chic bob that you can either wear, you can either dry it smooth like this, or you can wear it wavy like this. And I will link the video down below in the description box, so once you've watched the rest of this, you can go and check Lydia and her gorgeous graduated bob out. Now, moving on with more controversialness, I am going to pop some images up on the screen of this particular product that I'm not into. A lot of colour houses have them. Yes, these. Double base or hair colour that's specifically formulated to give you a very opaque coverage. So that could be a double N or a double zero, or I think some brands have things that are like triple zeros or, you know, extra, extra, extra base. I just don't enjoy the finish. Now, I do a lot of grey coverage. You know, I am 51. I know, I am 51 and a lot of my clients are around a similar age as me. Big up to my lovely clients. Hello, if any of you watch this. So I do a lot of grey coverage in salon, and I do a lot of grey coverage using demi-permanent colour, and I do use a lot of permanent colour as well. But I never, ever, ever use extra coverage lines of colour. It's brilliant that they're there, and if you love them, that's great, but I don't like that very heavy pigmented opacity. I have used them in the past. I have tested many brands. I get sent a lot of things, and I've tried stuff over the 35, 36 years that I've been hairdressing, but I just don't enjoy the finish. I just think they can look very heavy, muddy. I think sometimes they can look quite, you know, like opaque. Like, the more opaque that hair colour is, the less it reflects the light, in my opinion. So that very flat, very pigmented look just gives you a colour that's very dense and quite dull. In my opinion, if you formulate using, you know, an N line or a 0 line, and you're formulating with perhaps a little bit of warmth, a little bit of gold, I know there will be clients who don't want to see any warmth at all in their grey coverage, and that's completely fine, but then you would stick with the zeros or the Ns. And I'm talking generally about zeros and Ns because I know most colour lines will use either one or the other, a numbering system or a letter system. But if you formulate using those, you can get the coverage. My top tips would be always, always, always process it for the manufacturer's guidelines. If you want to stick to using zeros or Ns like I do, I always process permanent colour for 40 minutes, always, regardless of what brand it is or what's the grey hair that I'm trying to colour is. If you are going to use a double N or a double zero and you want to get the most natural result, then I would perhaps mix it in with something that is not so opaque and not extra coverage, if the line allows you to do that, if you can do it within the guidelines. And always, 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 when you're doing any grey coverage, if the hair is very grey, then I would always formulate a little bit of product for the hairline that is a shade lighter than my main base formulation. So in a separate bowl, you mix up the same shades, if you like, depending on what your formula is, just to clarify, but it's just one shade up, bumped up one shade, and then you apply that to the hairline and the part, and that gives you a much softer, more natural finish. And if you are going to use the very pigmented colours, then I would almost always say to formulate the hairline a shade lighter. So I'm sorry, because I know a lot of you love the double Ns and the double zeros and that really heavy opaque finish. And if you do, that's great, but for me, it's a no. Moving on, let's have a couple of quick things I'm really not into before we end the video. Inside I am cringing slightly because I know I've probably upset a few people, and I'm sorry if I have, but as I've already said many, many times, these are my own opinions, and you don't have to have the same opinion as me. That's why it's great. We all have our own opinions. We are all our own people. So next up is overly pigmented violet shampoos, and also this whole trend that was a couple of years ago of blue coloured shampoos to be anti-brass. And I'm going to do this in a nutshell because this video is going to be very long probably because I've already gone on about the other things that I'm not really into. But overly pigmented shampoos, violet shampoos, blue shampoos that deposit a lot of pigment. There is one violet shampoo that I had quite a lot of clients having bad experiences with when it first came out, that was launched by a brand beginning with an O. Yes. And I had clients that were coming in who had purchased the product, not from me, they'd purchased it themselves online and been using the product, and their hair had gone grey because it was so overpowered, like overpoweringly pigmented. Overpoweringly pigmented, that's a good one. So shampoos that are, violet in tone don't need to be that pigmented to cancel out the yellow in lighter levels of hair. Recently, I've been using this. I've been testing it out. There's some content on my Instagram, which is linked here. Well, not linked here, but is here, and it'll be linked down below in the description box. And you know, that has a very soft violet lilac tone, and it's really great. I've got it in my hair at the moment. It's really great for cancelling out the yellow on a lighter level. Obviously, if you are slightly deeper, then a deeper violet shampoo is going to be fine, and it's not going to overly deposit and make your hair look dull. But remember this, whether you're a hair pro or a consumer, the cooler that you make hair, the deeper and darker it looks. So if a shampoo overly deposits violet, then the hair is going to absorb the light and it is going to reflect darker. There are 3 clients I can think of that I've had to remove excess violet shampoo from. And the same goes for those blue tone shampoos that were really popular when there was a lot of balayage going around and a lot of people's hair was very level 8. But if you're a lighter level blonde and use a blue shampoo, your hair's gonna look really dull. I wouldn't recommend those blue tone shampoos at all. I'd rather a client come back into the salon and have a toner. And if clients are wary of using those products and you do want to recommend something, then my kind of first port of call would be to say, use half of the product that's got the pigment in it and then half of their normal shampoo, and mix the two together in a little cup or something first, not in their hand because it's hard to mix it in your hand in the shower, but mix it together first and then try that first before you kind of decide how much pigment is in the shampoo. So overly pigmented violet and blue shampoos, it's a no from me. And last but by no means least, gulp. Let's finish this video with another thing I'm really not keen on, and that's high lift tint. Shock, horror, I hear everybody say, high lift tint. In a nutshell, why do I not like it? Well, I've never ever got good results from it, really. I've had a couple of great results over the years, I guess, using it on very, very light bases. But high lift tint, and I talk about it in some of my other videos on here on my channel, is that, you know, high lift tint uses a lot of ammonia actually in the base of the colour, and then you mix it with 30, more often than not 40 volume, and you use twice the amount of 40 volume. So that's quite a strong chemical reaction. And then you use it on a level 6 and you never quite get as light as you would like. And obviously this depends on your own opinion and the aesthetic of the work that you are producing and what you like to do. But I was hairdressing in the 80s, I started hairdressing in the late 80s, and we used to do, and I did used to use it then, and we'd do like a high lift tint and a lightener, and then a high lift tint and a lightener, or 2 lighteners and a high lift tint, or 2 high lift tints and a lightener, any of those combinations. And I never liked the contrast between the highlight that was bleach and the highlight that was high lift tint. And for me, just to use an analogy, high lift tint always feels like you're pushing something up a cliff. And it became so popular in the early 90s because so many hair peeps, hair pros, were nervous and a bit anxious around using lightener bleach. But I'm a bleach person through and through. I love lightener, and if you understand the product that you're using and you respect it and you understand ratios and all the things that are here on my channel, all the videos that are about bleaching all go into all of those points, then in my opinion, bleach is great and high lift is a no-no for me. I haven't used high lift tint in years, and I have tested some out, and I do think there are some great formulas out there on the market from the big colour houses that I've tried, but they really are not for me. So that's it, we're at the end of things I'm not really into. Gulp. Now, if you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful, or you've just enjoyed it, it's just fun for you to watch, you know exactly what to do. And if you would like to see my hair day to day, that's all on my Instagram, which again is here, yes. And here's a question for you. He's asking questions and pointing at the screen. Don't point at the screen, Craig. Would you like a video on techniques I'm not into? I have it on my list of content to produce, but techniques I'm not into. So things I don't ever do on clients that I see. Would you like to see that? Well, then let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget that here on my channel, you leave me a comment and I will always, always, always reply. It blows my mind when I reply to somebody and they always then reply back to say, oh, you replied. Obviously, we're not doing mean comments here on my channel, on this platform, on any of my platforms actually. So, but if it's a question or, something that you love or something that you don't like, then obviously leave a comment and I will always reply. So as I sign off every video, a huge thanks for watching this. You all take lots of care and I'll see you all in the next one.